been a new joy in many places. But I'm so excited to be here. I will tell you how I got into apologetics, but I must tell you that it warms my heart to see other people, other Kenyans, who are interested in apologetics, because it's such a significant, such an important topic that I am actually very surprised that not everybody is involved in it, especially in the church. But most of the time, because they don't know what it is, and it's our job to make this message heard, this message known. Because apologetics, as we will see, is not something that we can afford to ignore anymore. It's indispensable now in the proclamation of the gospel, to disciple anybody. We cannot be able to do it without apologetics. So we'll be talking about that for a few minutes. But I also do a lot of Q&A, so I won't speak the whole time. I'll let you ask a question that you might have. We can talk about that as well. And again, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. And I'm hoping this will be a time that is going to be beneficial to you, that you will not have fought traffic to get here for nothing. Actually, it took us 40 minutes to get to Westlands, and then more than an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes to get from Westlands to here. So I've been just sitting in traffic the whole time as you were waiting for me here to arrive. So let's just get into it. I was asked to speak on the urgency of apologetics, why we need it, why the church needs it. And so that's what we'll do, that's what we'll talk about. Maybe some of you have heard me talk about this. I don't mind doing it again until everybody hears it. So that's what we'll be doing. But let me begin by telling you how I got into apologetics. One of the reasons why many people don't care that much about apologetics is because we do not do it the way the Bible commands us to do it. People who do apologetics, who love apologetics most of the time, tend to be people who like to argue and to fight and all that. And believe me, I mean, not many people who are interested in doing that at all in the church. And that's why, and I'm hoping that with Apologetics Kenya, that the approach that is taken here in defending the gospel will be one that is winsome, attractive, and one that will be honoring to Christ and done through the power of the Holy Spirit. If we don't do that, it's going to be a waste of time. But not a lot of people who are very, very smart, who have all the facts, all the information, but they don't lead anyone to Christ, and they're obnoxious to be around. They're not people that you want to hang around, even though they are Christians and they have all the answers. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we've been called to do. We've been called to be ambassadors of Christ. And I'm hoping that's the passion for everybody who's here. It's good to be able to present good arguments and good reasons why we believe what we believe, but we must do it with the foundation of love for everybody that God brings our way. Because if you really are a person who holds the truth, and you believe everybody that you're speaking to is actually lost if they don't have Christ in their life, if they are lost and you have found the way, if they have cancer and they are dying and they don't know and you have the cure, why would you be obnoxious about it? What should characterize each one of us is concern, urgency, and love for these people, regardless of how they react. We are supposed to maintain our composure. And I'm hoping that will continue to characterize what is saying in everything. So, how did I get into apologetics? I went to a high school in Kitui, and while I was there, my passion all my life was to study medicine. I graduated and got a scholarship to go to the US and study medicine. I had a full-ride scholarship to the university in New York called St. Lawrence University. And what I was supposed to be doing there was to study medicine, and I wanted to come back and practice medicine as a doctor here in Kenya. That was my passion all my life. But I also was a very new believer. I did not grow up in a Christian home, didn't know, never owned a copy of the Bible. Nobody in my family owned a copy of the Bible, never read it. Until my family moved to Kijabi, and someone gave me, a missionary from the US, gave me a copy of the Bible. She didn't tell me to start reading from Genesis, from the Gospel of John or the Gospel of Mark. So I started reading from Genesis 1, and just kept reading right through. I was 13 years old at the time, but I was faithfully reading the Bible. And I knew nothing about Christianity. It's this sounds weird because I grew up in Kenya, but there are places in this country where people don't know that much about the Bible. And the other people that I knew who were Christians were people who, the women wore long dresses and they did not use any type of medicine. Actually, some of those women would die in childbirth. They could not go to the hospital. When they went to go to, when they wanted to buy toothpaste, they would not say dawa ya meno, they would ask for sabuni ya meno. And to me this was crazy. I thought that's what it meant. They say they were born again. I thought that's what it meant to be born again, to be a Christian. And the last thing I wanted in this world was to be born again to be a Christian. I feared people who were born again who were Christians. And so that was my experience. So when I got this scholarship to go and study medicine, a friend of mine whom I had just met, who was a missionary in Kijabi, where my family had moved to, he said to me, you have too many questions about God. You need to go to a Bible college first and study, learn something about what the Bible is about and how to defend it, you have to defend your faith, and then you can go on and study medicine at the secular university that you've been admitted to. So I went to a Bible college in Pennsylvania, and my goal was to become very strong and break pulpits. And as you can see, I succeeded. My goal was to study, to be there for to be at the Bible college for just 1 year, and then go on and study medicine and become a medical doctor. I did not think that there was any other human being of any value in this world who was not a doctor. I thought only doctors did anything that was meaningful in this world. And I remember as a kid, I would hear somebody was sick in the hospital in Kijabi, and I would not even go see them. I would say to myself, wait until I become a doctor, then I can go and help them. That was my thinking as a kid. I didn't realize that many patients die in the doctor's hands. That's not really the answer all the time. So I went to the Bible college in Pennsylvania. I was supposed to be there for 1 year. While I was there, I was expecting the issues that people talk about in apologetics to be addressed. But this was a Bible school, and they don't do that in Bible schools, unfortunately. That's why we see a lot of people in pastors in our churches who know nothing about apologetics because they never studied it. And when they offer a class in apologetics, they have just a few very confused arguments people, and by the time you come out, you don't want to use any of that anymore. And that's why people are so confused about apologetics. That's why we don't do it as well as we should. And we will hopefully get to the point where we can talk about why this is happening, why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in today. So when I was there at the Bible school, I was very concerned, and I was even more confused. Not because they were doing a bad job. They did a very good job of teaching the scriptures. They will teach you Greek and Hebrew and Christian theology and church history and all that stuff. But what I was looking for was apologetics, and I did not even know what I was looking for. So I could not wait for that year to end so I could go on and study medicine. Then I heard Rabbi Zacharias on the radio, and I could not believe it. He was actually answering the questions that I was asking. And I fell in love with apologetics when I heard. I didn't even know what it was called. But I got to meet Rabbi, and I asked him, where can I go to learn to understand the Christian worldview the way you do? He said to me, this is called apologetics, and if you go to Biola University out in California, you can learn how to do what I do, study under a professor named J.P. Moland. So I decided to stay at the Bible college. His praise and advice. Whatever you do, and you do it, you're supposed to do it for the glory of God. The reason I'm grateful is not because I'm in the best calling possible. All callings done to the glory of God are equal. That's a topic for another day. But the reason I'm so thankful is because I now understand the value of apologetics. I was doing it at that time for my own good, to get my own questions answered. That's why I was so passionate about apologetics. But now I understand how significant, how important it is to the church as a whole, to every human being. And it has become even more urgent in our context right here in Kenya. Some of you may remember reading an article that was written in 2008 by an atheist. The article, I've referenced this many times before I can speak on this topic. His name is Matthew Paris. He was born in Southern Africa and grew up there, but his parents were from the UK. And when he went back to the UK, he become now a very famous author, member of parliament, very respected person. And he wrote an article called, "As an Atheist, I Really Believe Africa Needs God." You can find that on the internet. "As an atheist, I truly believe Africa needs God." You know what his conclusion was? He said what Africa needs are not, he was not talking about people who come and start hospitals and schools and all that, which are great and wonderful things, and which missionaries have done throughout Africa. He was saying there is a need for the change of our worldview, the way we think about life, the way we think even about ourselves, and the only way that can happen is if we embrace the message of the gospel, because it actually frees your mind to be able to worship God directly without the intermediaries of other people that always have you serving their purpose. And he said this is what changed Europe. It was actually the Reformation that made Europe what it is, and we talk about human rights and all those things. It's a wonderful article to read. And it's something that a pastor would say, but it's being said by an atheist. And he is faithful to history to show what the gospel has actually done in changing the lives of people. In the same year, 2008, there's another article that was actually an entire magazine that was devoted to the issue, why is it that in places like the West, the gospel has had such a significant impact, it actually changed the West and made Western culture what it is today. Almost all the good in Western culture comes from the Bible. And then the question was, how come it doesn't seem to be having the same type of impact in these other places like Africa and South America and Asia and all that, where people have accepted the gospel in droves, but it doesn't seem to be having the same impact that it had in the West. That was the issue. The March-April issue of Nation Frontiers magazine, 2008, was devoted to answering that question. And the editor, his name is Ralph Winter, said this: "We always used to think that even though the gospel is not doing so well here in the West, at least those millions of believers overseas are flourishing in the faith." And then he said, if you look carefully, you will see that's really not true. That is not happening. And he gives many uncertain examples. He talked, for example, about Central African Republic being one of the most dangerous countries in the world, even though it's 70% Christian. 70% of people there call themselves Christians, and with a high number of evangelicals there. Then he talks about Kenya, with the violence that broke out during the post-election issues of 2008. And I'm sure maybe all of you know that just before the genocide in Rwanda, over 90% of the people in that country claimed to be Christians. So he was asking, those are big issues that we are looking at. If you look at the smaller issues like corruption and all these things, it's even worse. The problem is much worse than in the West. And he was asking, they were asking the question in that magazine, what's going on? How come all these believers are not having the same type of impact on their culture that the gospel had in the West? That was a question that was devoted to that issue, asking those questions. And this is probably something for many of you, this is not just a theoretical issue, it's probably very practical for you. During the 2008 election chaos, my family and I were living in the US, but we happened to be in Kenya, we visited in Kenya, and we had a taxi driver drive us all the way to Nakuru, and then he drove back. So we were there without a vehicle to get out. When the chaos broke out that Sunday evening, I managed to talk my brother-in-law into coming all the way to Nakuru to pick us up. There was no other vehicle on the road from Nakuru all the way to here. I remember seeing homes burning on the other side of Nakuru, and this man who ran past my mom's house with an arrow in his leg. And when we got to the place where to my mahiro, I spoke at a church that the following Sunday evening, and people gave their testimonies about how God had helped them. Everything they want to testify about God's goodness. And one man got up and he said this: last Sunday, my house was burnt down to the ground. And he said, the person who burnt down my house, after ordering us to get out of the house, he said that person was the same person who led worship in our church that same day. They went to the same church. They just happened to be from different tribes. And because they were from different tribes, tribe came first before anything happened, before the gospel. hence the violence that took place. I remember asking myself, what in the world is going on? How can people who are worshiping in the same church behave that way to each other? Now there are many answers to that question. There are many things that we have neglected as a church. We could talk, for example, talk about what discipleship means. We could talk about spiritual formation. We could talk about Jesus and teaching the Bible, and we could talk about all those things. But today, I want us to talk about apologetics because that's the topic of the day. And I want to suggest that one of the missing pieces in this puzzle is apologetics. That's one of the problems. There are many other problems, but that's one of the problems. And again, I'm sorry about this cough. I've been trying to shake it off for a while now. But it's still hanging on. Hopefully it's not too much of a bother to you. If it is, I can help it. If you know what to do to help it, that would be great too. But anyways, so apologetics is one of the missing pieces. So what I'm going to do is talk briefly about what I mean by apologetics. And then we'll talk about two reasons why we cannot ignore apologetics anymore, and then finish with an application. So that's where we are headed for the rest of our time. So what is apologetics? Apologetics is a branch of Christian theology that is devoted to answering or responding to the intellectual obstacles that keep human beings from taking their faith seriously. So it's helpful to both the believers as well as non-believers. Even if everybody in the whole country was a Christian and a follower of Christ, we would still need apologetics. It's useful for both. Because it's useful for our witness to the world, telling the gospel. It's also useful for loving God with our minds. It's a command, as we will see. So it's part of serving God with our minds, to be able to study these things and the deep things of God. And you cannot be able to do that without answering some very difficult questions. So this is something that is expected of all of us. That's what apologetics is. It's a branch of Christian theology that seeks to address the intellectual obstacles that keep human beings from taking the gospel or the faith seriously. That's what apologetics is. Or it's simply the art and science of defending the faith. That's basically what it is. So let me now give you the reason that I promised why we cannot afford to ignore apologetics in our day. In the past, in our country, it was easier for us to do evangelism because people naturally, as Africans, we're very religious and we fear God. So someone tells you about God, you respond. That's what it was now. But now we carry the world on our hands, the phone. And questions that are being raised somewhere, in a corner somewhere, in Singapore or in California, we have them instantly. They are in our minds as well. So we cannot afford to hide anymore, to ignore apologetics anymore. So let me give you a couple of reasons why. Number one, we are commanded to love God with our minds. We are commanded to love God with our minds. In other words, we are expected to do it. This is not a surprise to God. We are expected to do it. And if you have hung around any apologists for any length of time, you have most definitely heard the verse 1 Peter 3:15, 16a. But in your heart, set apart Christ as Lord, always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you for the reason of the hope that you have, but do so with gentleness and with respect. If you hang up with an apologist and doesn't quote that verse, you're hanging out with a heretic. That's the flagship verse for apologetics. Now, that word translated answer is the Greek word apologia. To give an answer. It's a Greek word apologia from which we get the word apologetics. So it's simply giving an answer to anyone who asks for the reason. And they don't have to actually ask you. They may ask themselves, or they may state the question in such a way that is what they're actually asking you is exactly what Peter is commanding us to be prepared to do. Why is this sense to do this, or how do I handle it? They're asking you, they are maybe even sometimes they're asking themselves, but you are there to give the answer. And that what being prepared It's actually in the Greek, it's a word that means to make it a habit, to continue learning all the time. It's not like, if I were to give you an exam right now that you took in standard 8, okay? Would you pass? How many of you would pass? Would fail, right? Or even in Form 4. Many of us would not remember what the answers were. Because we prepared for that and we got out of there. It's more, that's not the kind of preparation Paul is talking about, Peter is talking about. He is talking about the kind of preparation that you do in the gym. Okay? People can tell whether you've been doing it or not very easily. So it has to be good. I have not been doing it for a while. So it's something that's supposed to be continuous, over and over and over again. So never feel as though you failed. If you didn't have an answer at some point, you are on the journey, being prepared to become what God means for you to be. So that's what he means when Peter says, always be prepared. Always continue preparing yourself is exactly what he's saying. And you're preparing to give an answer, but you're doing so with gentleness and with respect. That's a missing piece in many apologetics venues, and that's why it has such a bad name. And I'm hoping that as Apologetics Kenya and anybody else doing this, we'll be able to change that perception so we can be able to portray ourselves as a ministry of love, which is what we are called to do. The basic commandment, as we'll see in a second, is to love God, to love neighbor. That doesn't change if you become an apologist. It's still the command that we're supposed to be operating with. So it's a command given to us. We see it directly from 1 Peter chapter 3, from verse 15 to verse 16a. So then what I want to do, because in my experience, this is the most difficult point to get people to believe. Because if you can accept that this is biblical, this is actually what we're expected to be doing. We're supposed to be living this way. For anybody who cares about the Word of God, we are going to be interested and involved in apologetics. We can be convinced it's biblical. If we think it's just an extracurricular activity for some people who are maybe a little bit more gifted or a little bit more crazy or something like that, we are not going to be as involved. But if we can believe that it's actually expected of us, it makes a big difference. And that's why 1 Peter 3:15, somebody might think, well, that's just Peter, maybe he meant something different. Maybe you are taking him out of context and all that. So what I want to do for a few minutes is to look at Jesus doing what Peter is commanding us to do, what Jesus is commanding us to do through Peter. Let's see Jesus himself doing it. If you have your Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 22. You can click to Matthew 22. It's funny, we've gone all the way back to the Bible. Now we scroll down through the Bible. Yeah. Ready? Are we all ready? Are we all there? Matthew 22. So we're going to look at a few verses here, from verse 15 to the end, very briefly. I wish we had the time to look at these verses in detail, but we don't. But before we do that, let me tell you what's going on in this section of scripture. If you look at the last verse of the previous chapter, the last verse of chapter 21 is this. They were looking for a way to arrest Jesus, but they were afraid of the crowd because the people held that he was a prophet. Jesus' ministry has grown tremendously, and there are multitudes of people all over following him everywhere he goes. And because of that, the religious leaders of the day are very unhappy. They are very unsettled with Jesus because he has such a great influence among the people. So they are looking for a way to stop him, to arrest him, so that they can stop his message and his influence from spreading as much as it had done. But they don't know what to do because everybody loves Jesus. They can't just go and arrest him. His message will become even more popular if they do that. So persecution actually tends to increase or intensify the faith of the people that hold it. It actually has the opposite effect. And they know that, so they don't know what to do. But they stumble upon a brilliant idea. And they are going to use apologetics against Jesus. And he's going to use it to defend what he's trying to do. So from Matthew chapter 22 and verse 15, it says this in verse 15. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. What are they going to do? It's okay to respond. They're going to do what? To trap him in his words. This is what they are going to do. These people who are going to be asking him these questions are the most gifted, most intelligent people of his day. If they were living today, they'll be teaching in the best universities around the world. They'll be teaching at Harvard and Yale and Oxford, University of Nairobi. What do people laugh at us? Hopefully they won't hear us, right? These were the most gifted people of the day, the most brilliant minds of the day. Many of them had the entire Old Testament memorized. If you wanted to learn, to know anything about any new learning, these are the people that you went to. So they are going to track him in his words. And that means, what that means is this. They are going to go, they're not afraid, they are going to go to where he's teaching out in public, and they're going to ask him questions that will demonstrate how ignorant he really is, and that he is not worth following at all. So they're going to trap him in his words. That's apologetics. That's really what apologetics is about, because many of the people, if you look at the ideologies that keep people away from the faith, these are traps in their minds, and they have to do with their understanding, how they understand, for example, the concept of who God is. That's the main issue between Islam and Christianity. It's the main issue between Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Christianity. It's just an understanding of who God is. So they are going to trap him in his word. So here's what we are going to do. We are going to ask ourselves this question: what is the trap that they laid against him, and how did he get out of that trap? So that's what we're going to ask ourselves for the rest of our time. The first trap that they laid to him, they bring to him is verse 16. They sent their disciples. These people are so arrogant, they can't even go there themselves. Right? They just send the disciples, just go ask him, please. This is so arrogant. They sent the disciples to him along the way, but we'll see. By the time we are done here, they'll be sending experts. No. They sent the disciples to him along the way with the Herodians. Along with the Herodians. Teacher, they say, we know you are a man of integrity and you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You are not swayed by men. Do you think they believe any of that? No. We are told they are trying to trap him, right? Yeah. So this is all, I will not say what I'm going to say. Verse 17, tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, you see that he can see right through them. You hypocrites, he says, why are you trying to trap me? So he can see what they're trying to do. Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose portrait is this and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Verse 22, when they heard this, they were amazed, so they left him and went away. Let me tell you this, when I first read this, verse 22 says they were amazed at his answer, right? Verse 33 says, when the crowds heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. You see that? When I first read this, I was not amazed, and I was not astonished. No, I was very confused. Because I remember exactly where I was. I was in Kibera. I was working there with a pastor, who I think he's still there. And what we would do, I was 19 years old, what we would do is we would start singing and build a stage and start singing. We had a PA system. People would gather by the thousands sometimes, and we would just do a preach. People would come to Christ. The pastor would preach. One day he said to me, we were up there singing, and he says to me just before the message, by the way, you're bringing the word tonight. And I panicked. I said to my friends, keep singing until I can find the Bible and prepare a message. I preached. People came to Christ. I have no idea what I preached on. And I'm glad there were no cell phones those days to record what I was trying to say. But from then on, I started getting ready, being prepared to go and preach, because he did this to me a few more times. I remember reading this, and I read, they were amazed, they were astonished. I thought, man, if I can figure out why they were amazed, why they were astonished, and I preach this, people will be amazed and astonished at how great God is, and they will come to Christ. So I read it. They asked me, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? And Jesus says, give Caesar what is Caesar's, to God what is God's. And I thought, he just told them to pay taxes. What's so amazing about that? What in the world is going on? There was a preacher who was traveling here in Kenya from Australia, and he came to Kibera, and I remember running with my Bible. He explained to me why this is amazing, astonishing. And he had no idea why it was astonishing either. But since then I've had some good teachers who taught me how to study the scriptures. And once you find out what's really going on here, it's amazing, it is astonishing. Because when they say to Jesus, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? Let's go back to our formula. What is a trap? What is a trap that they are laying for Jesus? The trap is this. In those days, during this time, the Romans were ruling over the Jewish people. And the Jewish people hated the Romans. They didn't want anything to do with the Romans. Because the Romans were imposing heavy taxes on them. There was no handshake between the Romans and the Jews. They were imposing heavy taxes on them. So there were people who would rise up during those days and tell the Jewish people, let's stop paying taxes to Caesar. Those people would be arrested and they would be killed by the Romans. So they knew if they go out in public with everybody there and they ask Jesus, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? What's going to happen? If he says yes, the Jewish people who are following him would walk away from him, right? If he says no, what's going to happen? He's going to be arrested. He'll be arrested and he will be executed and their mission will be accomplished. So however he answers, he is in trouble. And many times in apologetics, you are going to be in trouble when people ask you a question and you just answer directly. If somebody asks you, for example, do you believe in hell? In an open forum with a lot of people there, never say yes or no. You don't answer the question that way because the person has assumptions that you need to address first. If you look at the way Jesus answered questions, he almost always answered a question with a question. And the reason for that was to bring out the assumptions, to surface them so they can be addressed. Because if you don't address them, you're really not going to answer the person at all. But the person who asks you, do you believe in hell, believes this. Anybody who believes in hell is backwards, is unjust, doesn't understand how justice is supposed to work, and it should not be listened to. So if you say yes, you are admitting to all those things. You need to address those assumptions first before you give an answer. But if somebody asks you the question, if a Christian is extremely sensitive, if a Christian takes his or her life, will he or she go to heaven? Never make the mistake of saying yes, because that person will be asking you for permission to go and kill himself or herself. You need to listen to the question behind the question. So Jesus does that beautifully in his ministry, and we see that happening right here. And the people that he was speaking to understood these ideas as well. So when he asks for the coin, and he says, whose image is on this coin, immediately they understand where he's going. Because you mentioned certain words in the context of Jewish people, those words have a lot of significance in scriptures. And when you think about the word image, for example, in the Bible, where do you find its significance used in the most significant way?
The Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments, right?
Yes.
And where else? Genesis, okay? So Jesus says this, whose image is on the coin? And they say, Caesar's, right? Then Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. Now the coin belongs to Caesar, so give it to him, right? But what do you give to God? That's not a dress, right?
Yeah.
But the people that heard Jesus understood what he was talking about. They did, and they were amazed, right? Why? Because this was happening. So you give to Caesar what bears Caesar's image. What do you give to God? What bears God's image. And what is that? That's you, and that's me. And he was saying this to them. I am here to do a much, much, much greater service to you, to lead you back to the God who made you in his image. And you're trying to get me involved in these very fights that you're having. My mission is much, much greater than that. And when they heard that, they were amazed. Then, verse 23. That same day, so interesting. That same day, don't even wait for the next day, right? That same day, the Sadducees, who said there is no resurrection, came to him with that question. You know that story. These are the Sadducees. They don't believe in the resurrection, right? But Jesus is going about teaching about the resurrection, and teaching about marriage as being a union between one man and one woman. He talks about that, for example, in Matthew chapter 19, just a few chapters earlier, he talks about that. So, they are also going to lay a trap for him, right? And Jesus has to get out of it, right? So what is the trap that they lay for him? They tell you this story. There was this woman who was married to 7 brothers, and they all died. And now you're teaching marriage between one man and one woman, right? And you're also teaching that there's life after death. Now, let's say there's life after death. All these women, all these men, and this woman are all alive now, right? If marriage between one man and one woman, what in the world is going to happen here? You have all these men, they can claim this woman, right? What's going to happen? Jesus is in trouble over answers, because if he says, what can he say? Maybe she'll be married to all 7 of them. Or that one that he says teaching, one man, one woman, right? That won't work at all. And so it just sounds crazy. If he says, or maybe she'll be married only to the oldest one, right? Then what about all the others that are legitimately her husbands, right? So what in the world is Jesus going to do? Jesus was very nice, very nice. If they had asked me a question like that, I would have wanted to ask them questions on my own, right? Questions like this: what in the world was this woman cooking for this relative? If you're not married here, this is not wife material, this is a serial killer. Just imagine this. The oldest brother dies, right? That's very tragic. I know people have lost their husband, that's very tragic. But the second one dies, yeah? I know people have lost 2 husbands, that's also very tragic. But then the third one, can you see a pattern here? Yeah? These guys must have been very down, right? Imagine them saying to each other, "You're next, man." But Jesus didn't do that. He didn't ask those kind of questions. He answered their questions. And when I was reading this, again, I was not astonished at his answer because I misunderstood it. The first part of the answer was very helpful. He said, have you not read? Maybe we should read it. 29. You are in error because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. Just stop right there and remember who he's speaking to. These are the most brilliant men. Most of them happen to be men who are doing this kind of thing. The most brilliant men of their day. The professors, the doctors, the whoever's of the day. And he's telling them they don't understand the scriptures. They're in error because they don't understand the scriptures. And yet, many of them have the entire Bible memorized. And this is in public. They came to show how dumb he is, right? No. But he's telling them, you're actually the ones who are dumb, right? Now, if he can prove that, who is going to be embarrassed? They will be, right? Now, you are in error. This is an amazing, amazing thing for you to say. Verse 30, at the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. That was extremely helpful to me. Okay, if there's no marriage, then there's no question, right? The question disappears. It was what in logic they call a false dilemma. Right? The dilemma is still not there. If there's no marriage, the question disappears. So what happened was, the faith came and attacked from philosophy in that way. Then science seemed to confirm that, because science began to explain the world in an unprecedented way. And because it seemed to explain the world, including human beings, especially the publication of Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species, where he explained where all the species came from. We did not seem to need the Bible anymore, because we could understand so much about ourselves and about our world without the Bible or without God. And then there was what developed in Germany called higher criticism, which was a way of studying the Bible, according to which the Bible is actually a collection of myths, Jewish myths. It has no basis in fact or in reality. They are very, very well put together myths with some problems, many problems, they will say, but they are not factual, they're not based on history. And you cannot go to the Bible to be able to learn that much about the past or anything like that. And when that happened, so if you trace the development of what are called Bible schools, what Christians did was they abandoned those universities, and maybe you know this, almost all the big universities in the Western world, almost all of them were actually started by Christians to equip Christians to become useful citizens in their country, in their countries. That's why Yale, Harvard, Boston, and all these universities, that's why they were started. But what happened was the Christians left those institutions, even in Europe, Oxford, Cambridge, they were started for the same reasons. They left them and started what I call the Bible school movement. And in Bible school, it was supposed to equip people, to train people, to win souls for Christ, and to tell people how to go to heaven when they die. But they had no idea what to do with that faith right here. That is what happened. There is nothing wrong with telling people how to go to heaven when they die. One of the greatest joys of my life is God had given me the privilege of seeing many people come to Christ. We had a conference recently in Memayo for young people, and more than 100 young people gave their lives to Christ. It's amazing thing to see. I'm not downplaying that. I'm saying when we focus only on how to get out of here, go to heaven when we die, we are missing out on what God has called us to do, because He's called us to be His representatives, to be His ambassadors in our world, to be in the world, but not of the world, but to be in it, right? To be in the world, but not of the world. So when the Bible was attacked in those 3 days, and the Bible school movement started, here's what happened. The West could continue with the momentum of Christendom that was put into place when Christians had the power and influence and all that, and when we were teaching the Word of God. For us, we got the version of Christianity that doesn't include the legacy of Christendom, and so we don't know how to use it to change our culture at all. I could give you a lot of examples. I remember when I was in the US reading the Standard newspaper online, when the movie The Da Vinci Code came out. And what I saw was this: the people, maybe more than 40 different denominations got together, and they were trying to force the government to ban that movie because there are some blasphemous things to say about Jesus. That's how we react to things, and that's the wrong way to do it, because you're fighting with ideas, and ideas must be answered with ideas. C.S. Lewis said this: good philosophy must exist for no other reason, because bad philosophy needs to be answered, and it can only be answered with good philosophy. So what was the problem with that? Churches getting together trying to get the movie banned. Several problems. Number one, the premise of the movie was that Christians have always had reason to hide their real colors, their real history. So when you ban the movie, what are you doing? You're confirming that, right? Secondly, when the church tells people not to do something, what do? They do it even more, right? They do it. So, and thirdly, how do you ban a movie when the movie is shown the first day in the US? It's on the streets. How do you ban a movie like that? And how do you ban it in the internet? How does that work? What they should have done was they should have collected maybe five of the teachers, church history teachers in some of the best schools here, paid for them in a hotel somewhere, maybe in Naivasha or whatever, and told them, do not come out of there until you've gone through this movie a few times and this book, and come up with a manual that we can use to help people understand what the truth is and where the truth lies. So we can be able to expose these lies that are being said about Jesus and about our faith. And if they had done that, there would have been many people coming to Christ through that propaganda. But we don't normally think about things like that. We want to ban things, and that's the wrong thing to do as a church. So if you want to apply God's word to your life, you must do so using your mind. The good news is this: this has been done in the past. We are not reinventing the wheel. Throughout history, Christians have done this. Take, for example, the 19th century with William Wilberforce, when he and his friend William Pitt decided to run for office to become parliamentarian, and they were in their early 20s as a joke, but they ended up winning, so they went to parliament. Actually, his friend became the prime minister because they were extremely gifted as speakers, especially Wilberforce. People would go to listen to him. He would stand in the rain, and there would be thousands of people listening to him, maybe it's hard to imagine somebody that open. When he spoke even in parliament, everybody listened, although he wasn't very tall. Then he became a Christian. He decided, if you become a Christian, what you do is you do church things. That's what you do as a Christian. You do church things. You don't do politics things. So he decided that's what he was going to do. He was going to leave politics and go to church. He was so serious with his faith that he would put pebbles, little stones, in his shoe as he was walking around to remind himself of the sufferings of Christ, so that he would not forget how much Christ suffered in his place. He was that serious. His friend, the Prime Minister, William Pitt, tried very hard to persuade him not to do that. He rejected his letter of resignation, but William Wilberforce had his faith in him. He went and spoke to John Newton. John Newton is a guy who wrote the hymn Amazing Grace, and he used to be the captain of a slave ship. So William Wilberforce goes to John Newton and says to him, "I've become a believer now. I need to, with the grace of God, I'm going to leave Parliament." And Newton told John Wilberforce, "No, you need to go back. You're very gifted as a politician. You need to go back and do that work in the name of Christ. Do it for Christ." So he went back and he says, God has given me two objectives. Number one, social reformation in my country. And the second thing is the eradication of the slave trade. He said, I'm going to devote my life to those two causes. And he fought for those causes until slavery was abolished across the English Empire just a couple of days before Wilberforce died. He fought that for many, many years. And he saw the changes coming. He wrote a book called Real Christianity. In that book, he tries to persuade the people of his time. He says to them, whatever you do, do not ignore apologetics. Teach your young people how to defend their faith. When I read that, I was extremely confused because I was thinking, why didn't Jesus go, for example, to Daniel chapter 12, the first few verses? It's very, very clear there will be a resurrection and a judgment. What in the world does this verse have to do with the resurrection? And this is one of the questions I was asking this guy from Australia. I'm glad I don't remember his name. Yeah, he wasn't very helpful. But there are some Australians who are very helpful. Now, this is what is going on here. Jesus quotes that verse. These are Sadducees. Let me tell you first of all why Jesus did not go to Daniel chapter 12. These were Sadducees. The Sadducees only accepted the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and 20. Those were the only books they thought were given to us from God. All the others they did not accept as the word of God. So if I was answering this question and I went to Daniel, they would not have listened to me. Jesus does something much, much more brilliant. He goes to the Old Testament, to the books that they accepted, the book of Exodus, and he picks a verse that they repeated to themselves every day about who their God is, the God that they worship. And he tells them, that verse that you repeat every day actually teaches you that there is life after death. How does it do it? Jesus says, this verse was spoken to Moses in Exodus chapter 3, and this is what God says to Moses. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. At that point, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had been dead for many, many years. But God did not say, I was, or I used to be. That's what he should have said. Unless he's really bad at grammar, that's what he should have said. I was their God. I was with them, I helped them and all that. But he said, right now, I am their God. The only way God would say that to Moses is if they were still living. That's what the Bible actually teaches, and these are the verses that they really, really value. And he says, he is not the God of the dead. He is the God of the living. That's amazing. The people who have died, the loved ones who have died in Christ, that they are with him right now. This is a very comforting verse to me, because we lost our mom when she was 62 years old. After raising us in all kinds of difficulties, she had to do a lot of very difficult things to bring us up. And to know that she is with Christ, she's not really dead, is an amazing thing to me. Verse 33, when the crowd heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. We are astonished too, right? At his teaching. Okay, verse 34. Verse 34. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees. I like those. We silence them. They silence the Sadducees. That's amazing. The Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him. Now they're bringing experts, not disciples. That is the expert. We can just about see him. Yeah, he's asking this question. Yeah, but he's asking this, which is the greatest commandment. These are traps, right? So how is that a trap? Which is the greatest commandment? How is that a trap? Here's how that is a trap. Or somebody wants to try and answer the trap?
There are many commandments.
There are many commandments. So, and the trap is?
Which one?
Huh? What? Here's the trap, okay? If Jesus, there are many commandments and they all came from God. All of them. If Jesus takes one or two and says those are the greatest, what is he saying about all the others? They are null and void, and they were given to us by God. So the people listening will not respect him for that. You cannot badmouth God in their presence, okay? You just don't do that. So that's one problem. What if he says they are all equally important? These people had come through the Old Testament, and they had come to the conclusion that God gave us 613 laws. They had counted them, all of them. 613 laws. And they had said they are all equally important. So they were extremely legalistic. They observed all kinds of things. They were very legalistic. So if Jesus says all those laws are equally important, what has he done? He has proven to everybody listening that these guys are the real scholars in Israel, and all he is doing is just popularizing their message. So they can go back to their offices, okay, and grab their beards because they have the authority in Israel. All this pumpkin preacher there doing is popularizing their message. That's what he's doing. So he's in trouble if he speaks some and says these are the most important, or if he says they are all important. But then he answers the question in a very straightforward way. Love God and love neighbor, right? Those are the most important. And we cannot miss in our context. Jesus says in verse 37, he says, we must love God with the entirety of our being, including our minds. It's a command from Jesus, given to us as the greatest commandment, to love God with our minds, which is what we are talking about right now. And then, when the person who had asked that question, we are told elsewhere, that when he heard that answer, he thought about it for a second and he thought, wow, if I keep those two, I'll be forced to keep all the others, right? He figured that out, and Jesus said to him, you're not far from the kingdom. That's an amazing thing that we see here. So as they say in the US, he knocks all this out of the park, right? He answers the question in a very powerful way. He's doing apologetics right here. And then verse 41, it gets better. Because now, Jesus is going to turn the tables on them. Okay? Now he's going to ask them questions and see what they do with these questions. Okay? Verse 41, well, the Pharisees were gathered together. They are all there, okay? So there's no excuse that some of our best were not there. So they are all there, right? They're gathered together. Jesus asked them this question. What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he? The son of David. Even a child in the street knew who was the son of David. Jesus says, very well, wonderful, great guy. Verse 43. He said to them, how is it then that David, speaking by the Spirit, I like that, says, but you cannot get away from it because this is the Spirit of God speaking through David, calls him Lord. David calls the Messiah Lord. For he says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make put your enemies under your feet. He's quoting Psalm 110, and he says to them, in that verse, Psalm 110 is actually, this is the most quoted passage from the Old Testament in the New Testament. For many reasons, we don't have the time to go into those reasons, but one of the reasons is, in that passage, the Messiah who is to come is actually made to be equal with Jehovah God. David wrote this psalm. He wrote it. And he tells us, he wrote many others, and he tells us in all those psalms who his Lord, his master really was. And that was the living God, Jehovah God himself. But in this verse, he does something very strange. He has two lords. You see that?
Yeah.
The Lord says, my Lord, okay, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet. So, he has somebody, he has Jehovah God, who is his Lord. But he has another Lord, who is his master as well. And he's giving them the same honor. He's bowing his knee to that same person. There's another passage, for example, in the Psalms also, where he talks about the Lord, when God, you are God, has appointed you. Those are there. There's a Trinity and the divinity of the Messiah in the Old Testament. So Jesus asked them, how can David do that? How can he bow his knee to the Messiah who was to come if it was just his son, just his descendant? How is that possible? Even David calls him Lord, verse 45. Even David calls him Lord. How can he be his son? Verse 46 is my favorite in this whole exchange. No one could say a word in reply, and from that day on, no one dared to ask him any Bible questions. Did Jesus do apologetics?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. And he expects us to be able to do it, to showcase the winsomeness of the message of the gospel. That's what apologetics Kenya is about. And that's why we need more people doing it. We need more people in our churches, even giving of their money to support this kind of work, because we need it. It must be done, and we'll be seeing even more why that is the case. So, number one reason was we are expected to do it. I wish you had the time to go through Acts chapter 17 to see the Apostle Paul doing the exact same thing. It's an amazing thing. Or even Acts chapter 2 to see the Apostle Peter doing the same thing. It's an amazing thing to see throughout the scriptures. We are expected to do it. It's not an optional thing. Even if we were all believers, we are supposed to love God with our minds. Second reason. The second reason is this. Loving God with our minds, or doing apologetics, is a form of spiritual warfare.
Yes.
It is a form of spiritual warfare. I believe that the most effective tool in our enemy's hands is ideas. Because if he can get you to buy into an idea, he can take a vacation. Because you'll be doing what he wants without even there to tell you what to do. And he does that over and over and over again. Turn with me to 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and from verse 3. 2 Corinthians 10 from verse 3. From verse 3. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. See that we are there?
Yes.
But for the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. If I stop there and ask the average Christian what Paul means by strongholds, you get all kinds of answers.
Yes.
Demon possession, forming on the mouth, all kinds of things. That is not what Paul is talking about. The deliverance ministry is very important, and Paul talks about it, for example, in Ephesians chapter 6. Here he's addressing a different type of spiritual warfare. How do we know that? Because he tells us, he says in verse 5, we demolish what? What do we demolish? Louder.
Speculations.
Arguments, okay, we have different translations. Arguments or?
Speculations.
Speculations, okay. And how do you speculate? With your mind. These are arguments, right? These are things people say against the gospel, okay? These are ideas. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against that. Is it the power of God? No, the knowledge of God. You are claimed to know God, okay? That you really know God. These are pretensions that sets themselves up against the knowledge of God. That question your knowledge of who God is. And we take captive every thought. Do you see that? Arguments, knowledge, thoughts. He's dealing with the mind. Do you see that? It's how we think and how we reach conclusions in every way. Paul believed and taught that ideas are that important, that we need to be able to help people get away from ideas that make God less than who he is. make godless in their minds and who he really is. That's what he's talking about here. But maybe you really still don't believe that this is what is going on here. Ask yourself this question. How did the devil succeed in driving Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden? He did not succeed by overpowering their will. He did not bring illness to them. He did not do any of that. What did he do? He planted an idea in their minds because he knew that if they could buy into that idea, if you eat of this fruit, you will be like God. You will not need God to tell you what to do. He knew if he could get them to do that, he had them for the rest of their lives, and they fell for it. Ideas are the most powerful weapons in the hands of our enemy, and we must be prepared to combat ideas and to be able to teach people the pure word of God, the truth of the word of God, because wrong teaching, bad teaching about the word of God will lead people astray and will cause them to forever pursue a mirage, something they cannot be able to reach at all. We have been given the responsibility to faithfully teach the word of God, and the Bible takes that extremely seriously. For example, in James chapter 3, the Bible says, not many of us should presume to be teachers, because those who teach will be judged more severely or more harshly. Why is that? Because when I stand in a place like this holding the word of God, God help me. People listening out there will go and put that into practice, and it has eternal consequences. And I'm bringing that judgment on myself. We need to be properly trained, to be properly disciplined, to study the word of God, to be able to teach it, because ideas are that important. It's not possible to do that without doing apologetics, because we have way too many competing ideologies out there. I remember reading a story about Charles Templeton. He was a preaching partner for Billy Graham in the early days. And actually many people thought that Charles Templeton was a much better preacher than Billy Graham, that he had a much better future. But he had issues that were troubling him in his mind about the word of God. And he went to Princeton University to study there, and ended up becoming an agnostic, an atheist, not believing God. He wrote many books against God. His last book that he started was entitled Farewell to God. I was not here when they announced the return of the phone, so sorry about that. So Charles Templeton wrote the last book as Farewell to God. But before he died, I think it had to happen before he died, Lee Strobel went to interview him for one of the books that Lee Strobel was writing. And as they were talking about how he ended up losing his faith and all that, the conversation turned to Jesus, talking about Jesus. And Lee Strobel was extremely surprised because Charles Templeton's eyes started to fall up in tears, and tears just started rolling down his face. And he wondered what is going on. And Templeton said this: I really, really miss Jesus. An amazing, amazing statement from an agnostic. He had learned how to love God with his heart, loves him with his heart, but his mind told him no. Whatever your mind rejects, your life will eventually reject it as well, however close it may be to your heart. We tend to follow our minds and what we really believe, our mind is telling us. That's what we tend to follow, and that's why we are to be transformed, not by the removal, but the renewal. We are to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. These are powerful, powerful weapons the devil has, ideas. But the good news is, God has also given us what we need to be able to speak and train and teach against such things. And that's why Apologetics Kenya and other ministries that are doing this kind of thing need to flourish and to do very well, because we are living in a time where we cannot afford to ignore this anymore. So I promised you two reasons I'm giving them to you. We are commanded, we are expected to do apologetics. It's a form of spiritual warfare. And now I want to conclude with the application, as I promised, the application. And what I want to say is this. I want to say to you is this. If you are going to be able to Well, let me give you the point first so that it makes more straightforward sense. Apologetics is indispensable in the application of God's word to all of us. It's indispensable in the application of God's word to all of life. If you're going to apply God's word to your life, you cannot do it without using your minds. It's not possible. Because we all come from a context, from a particular worldview context. And the ideas in those contexts that are inimical to the gospel must be challenged and they must be removed for the gospel to be able to take root in your life and in my life. If we don't remove them, what we end up doing is we live the way those ideas tell us. We just baptize those ideas with the gospel. What is meant to happen is for those ideas to be taken out. That's what's supposed to be happening.
Amen.
And that requires using our minds. It's not possible. And that's why, that's actually the reason we're in so much trouble. And I believe that's the answer to the question that was raised in the magazine that I mentioned earlier. Why is it that the gospel is not having the same type of impact in our context that it did in the West? Why is that happening? Let me give you a very, very short, quick historical reason why this is the case. If you don't like history, you can take a nap now, about 5 minutes. We'll wake you up. Just don't snore too much. Here is what happened. If you look at the impact the Bible had on the West, there's no question about that. And actually, even atheists admitted that. I could read a quote from atheists talking about what the Bible did for the West. And you can read that article by Matthew Powell. As an atheist that truly believe African is God, to see that this is actually true. That the gospel, the Bible changed the West. But why is it not having that kind of an impact to the same extent in our context? Here is what happened. In the beginning, in the 17th century, the Bible came under severe attack, mainly from 3 areas. From science, from philosophy, and from what is called higher criticism. Now, beginning with philosophy first. In philosophy, philosophers began to tell us that we can't have real knowledge of God. If you want knowledge, what you have to do is to rely on your senses to be able to acquire real knowledge. But anything you cannot feel, touch, see, smell, and all that, you cannot have knowledge of it. You can have faith that is there, but you cannot knowledge. You cannot have knowledge of it. So there was a dichotomy between faith and knowledge that we are dealing with even today. Faith and reason, faith and knowledge, religion and knowledge and all that. And for knowledge, what's the best way to get knowledge is through science. Okay? That became science. There are many people who worship science. These people are questioning all kinds of things, but if science says this, the issue is settled, right? There's something happening somewhere, maybe there's an attack or some catastrophe. You find people, they will go to the pastor to comfort the people. But if you want to know what's happening, you go to the psychologist, okay? Because they deal with knowledge, right? We deal with faith and emotion and feeling good and all that kind of thing. And we have accepted that the court, where at that moment the enemy is focused on attacking, he said, you are not so good. If you're professing Christ, he said, if you're professing Christ and you're ignoring that one part where the devil is attacking that moment, you're not confessing Christ, or much you be professing. He said, if you want your bravery to be proven, your commitment to be proven, is going to be proven at that point where the devil is focused in that moment. Right now for us, apologetics is one of that points where the devil is focused. I have spoken in many places and I do Q&As all the time. I can't tell you how many people in our churches, in our schools today, are really struggling with their faith in a big way. There's a lot of meaninglessness and hopelessness, a lot of suicide and anxiety and depression. And somebody here might be dealing with some of those issues as well. This is not a time to sleep. The time for us to stand up and be counted to know why we believe what we believe. Apologetics is one of the issues with which we must come to terms in our time today. It's a command given to us by God. We're expected to do it. It's a form of spiritual warfare. And we want to apply the word of God to all of life. We cannot do so without